Running up the score.
You're listening to the Running Up the Score podcast. Now here's your hosts, Jerry Napoleonello and Kevin Donlin.
Welcome to another episode of Running Up the Score. I'm Jerry Napoleonello. He's Kevin Donlin. We're going to get started talking some football here. It's weird because of no preseason games. It's like the season really kind of snuck up on us. We're like 2 weeks away from week one. So over the next couple of episodes, we're going to preview the divisions. We're going to go over the records and what we think is going to happen in those divisions. And obviously we can't talk about football without fantasy football, especially when my co-host is the fantasy football guru.
Not last year.
But on this episode, we're going to preview defenses and what you should look for when it comes to fantasy. So let's hop right into it.
Running Up the Score NFL Preview. AFC East. Buffalo Bills.
We're going to start with the AFC East. And we'll start with the Buffalo Bills, the team that I think is going to win this division. But we're going to discuss why. So the Buffalo Bills, they started 10-6. They ended 10-6 last year. They were 3-3 in the division. They were able to re-sign, some guys, nothing crazy. The big additions, obviously, was Stephon Diggs through a trade. Josh Norman they signed, Mario Addison, Quentin Jefferson, Vernon Butler, Tywan Jones, Darrell Williams, E.J. Gaines. They had some pretty good additions, adding to a team that made the playoffs last year and got through the first round last year as well. Josh Allen, another year under his belt. I think it's just, the Bills are a team to be looking for when it comes to the AFC.
No, absolutely. There's no arguing with you on that. I think the Buffalo Bills have one of the scariest defenses in football. It makes it, even like we talked about with fantasy, it'll be a tough matchup. You're not going to want your guys playing the Buffalo Bills. They're going to stop a lot of people this year, aside from, Patrick Mahomes, which I don't think anyone can stop. But, when it comes to the AFC East, it's wide open. Me being a Jet fan, so obviously my hopes are going towards the New York Jets. But, there's no doubt the Buffalo Bills do exist. They are a powerhouse right now. I would say the one thing that's holding them back would be Josh Allen. One of those that's not a believer just yet. I think in fantasy purposes, he's a great player with being able to use his legs and, find ways to move the ball. And that's exactly the kind of formula Buffalo's going to want. They're going to want to run the football, and they're going to want to play defense. So, they'll go as high as he goes.
Yeah.
And, I think Josh Allen has improvement to, there's improvement to be made coming into this season. I think he's aware of that. It'll be interesting to see what, we see. Because, from a Jet perspective, I felt like both games against Buffalo were really good games last year. The Jets definitely had a chance to win both of them. They're not a team I fear just yet. And it really is because of Josh Allen. I think their defense is very good. It'll make it very tough for the offense for the Jets. And, just like New England and Miami. But this isn't going to be a walk in the park, actually, by any means for the Buffalo Bills. It's their division to lose. But, as we go farther into the season and as, these games are played out, I could see Buffalo, up there. I'm going to put the Jets up there as one. Just, I'm always going to be biased towards that, and that's my hope. Then you got the Bills. And I don't really want to count out the Patriots just yet. As far as we know, the Patriots, it's their division. It's always been their division. It's been their division since I can remember watching football at this rate.
How long has Tom Brady been in the league?
No, it's too long. Obviously with him out of the division now, it does open it wide open for the other teams in the division. But again, you got Cam Newton over there. You still got Bill Belichick. New England misses some guys. by opting out due to COVID-19, especially on their defense. There'll be some learning curves there, but I don't think New England's going to skip a beat. I think they're still going to be a well-respected team, and they're going to be a tough beat each Sunday.
Yeah, with Buffalo, their offense is a I don't want to say underrated, but I guess you can say underrated, because when you look at, position by position, their best player on offense is definitely Stephon Diggs. When you look at the running back position, you're looking at a starter as, Devin Singletary. Then you look at John Brown, who actually had a very good year last year for the Bills. Cole Beasley, add him in there. They have a decent front line. Deion Dawkins being the best on their front line. Cody Ford also. It's like you said, this team goes as far as Josh Allen's going to take them, especially on offense. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the AFC East when it comes to the Bills. And we'll give what we think their record's going to be at the end of this division preview.
New York Jets.
But yeah, we'll move on to the New York Jets now, being that you want to talk about them. New York Jets. Their total.
Well, yeah, I'm always going to want to talk about the New York Jets. As we move on, like I threw in some, right there with the Buffalo Bills, but the New York Jets, the improvement will have to be made on the offensive side of the ball. You still got a lot of Jet fans out there that don't think we got Sam Darnold enough weapons. But I've always been a believer, way back to watching Peyton Manning and, guys like Tom Brady. You're going to make wide receivers in this league. If everything's working on all cylinders and the chemistry's there, that's the beauty of the wide receiver position. I mean, there are a lot of ones out there that are very, very good. But you're always going to have guys that are getting created based on, the play of their quarterback. And for Sam Darnold, his play is going to have to, elevate these receivers that we don't, know about just yet. And I think that's going to be the biggest obstacle for the New York Jets, is to be able to move the football. I think the defense is still going to be there. I think I have a lot of faith in Greg Williams. Losing guys like, Jamal Adams, are big hits. But, I am fully confident in every man in that locker room right now, especially with him at the helm, commanding it all. I think that on one side. And if the New York Jets can find a way to, move the ball offensively, you're going to see a team that's going to be pretty dangerous.
So last year, obviously, they finished 7-9. They were 2-4 in the division. Obviously, playing the Patriots, twice a year is always going to be hard. So as we said earlier, Tom Brady's gone. Who knows what's going to happen in this division? That was the one constant when it came to the AFC East, was that the Patriots were going to win the division. Tom Brady is still there. That's it. And then whatever happens to the rest of the division, that's going to happen. But last year, the Jets ranked 17th in turnovers. They ranked last in total offense, and they ranked 7th in total defense. Joe Douglas went with short-term deals in the offseason this year with 2021 in mind. This year they have a $30 million cap space. But me saying 2021 in mind, it's because they're supposed to have $81 million in cap space next year. And they're poised for a huge 2021 free agent. So it's going to be very interesting to see what the Jets do next year. I think that's the year that everybody's waiting for when it comes to the Jets, because they have so much money in cap space. But the Jets gave up the third most sacks in the league. They posted 35 sacks as a team, and 4 of them came from a defensive end.
Well, the offensive line, there was no doubt, was a big issue for the New York Jets last year, and this was well known even preseason. I'm pretty sure I had made some awareness that both New York teams were struggling on that side of the trenches. We have talked about on this show so many times about how important, the offensive line and the defensive line of your team are. The trenches are everything, and getting that push is going to be a big reason why you win and lose ball games. And for the Jets, they got zero push. And it's a perfect proof that Le'Veon Bell is a great running back, more than capable. He's been doing it for years for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and unfortunately, they couldn't get him going at all last year. I think it had a big part to go with why Sam Darnold struggled at times. But I think for the New York Jets, that revamped offensive line, I mean, just getting anybody else in there. And it's not a discredit to the guys that were in there last year. It's just obviously, this is not an easy thing to do. And the chemistry is going to have to be there. I think that's what this season is going to be all about. You talk about 2021. The New York Jets are going to have to find a way to get some rhythm with their offense and start finding a groove. And I thought towards the end of last year they did a decent job at that. There was a lot of games last year to be forgotten for the New York Jets. Obviously, the Patriot game, the Ghost game. Obviously the fact that Sam Darnold being out for a bunch of weeks to begin with.
With mono, yeah.
Mono or COVID, who knows? You don't know.
You don't know
at
now.
This point, who knows what it was? But unfortunately, the Jets missed him for a couple of weeks, and it was early on in the season, and this was coming off a game. They had just beaten the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah,
they last season wasn't looking that miserable for a New York Jet fan, and all of a sudden overnight it went away. You had Sam Darnold get sick, and Le'Veon Bell had gotten hurt maybe a couple of days later. It was probably one of the worst weeks for a Jet fan. One of the worst things you could think of, losing 2 vocal points of your offense. So, the Jets had a lot of setbacks last year, and for obvious reasons. Losing guys like C.J. Mosley, Sam Darnold, and Le'Veon Bell, you're not coming back from that.
No.
You talk about being a Cowboy fan, and we'll get into them a little bit later, but it's just as equivalent as losing like a Dak Prescott, Zeke Elliott, and DeMarcus Lawrence.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not coming back from that.
No.
You're not going to be the same team without those guys, and that's how important they are. But I think going into this season, I think the Jets. They have just as good a chance as anybody else in this division.
Miami Dolphins.
We obviously haven't talked about the Miami Dolphins yet.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure the expectations for teams like the New York Jets and the Patriots and the Buffalo Bills are going to be pretty high. And I think the one team that we're really, excluding from this is the Miami Dolphins. I do think that they have a lot to prove this year. I think everything that gone on last year, I think last year came as a little bit of a disaster, but I think they have a great head coach. I'd be confident in him as my head coach. I think every Dolphin fan should be very, very lucky to have someone like him. I think he really is going to be a difference maker for Miami, especially because the situation there was just abysmal, and it had nothing to do with the organization. The players there just didn't want to play there, and it's unfortunate because there's really not much not to like about Miami, Florida. So, it's going to be an interesting year for Miami. They have a lot to prove. But I think when it comes down to it, the expectations are really at another level for the 3 other teams in that division. But it'll be very interesting to see how Miami can, what they can come up with this season.
Yeah, so going into Miami, they went 5-11 last year. They were 2-4 in the division. They like you were saying, they're at the bottom, but not only at the division, they're at the bottom of the league when it comes to everything. I mean, they ranked.
Well, they have a lot to prove. There's no doubt.
They ranked 27th in total offense. They ranked 30th in total defense. They ranked 29th in turnovers. When you talk about some of the guys that they bring in, they brought in a veteran like Kyle Van Noy, which is huge. They bring in Shaq Lawson, which is huge. They bring in Byron Jones, give him the top, cornerback, defensive back contract. They add Jordan Howard. They add Eric Flowers. So they added guys in positions that they needed. That they struggled
they needed
in.
everything last year.
I mean, that's the thing. But
I like Byron Jones. I'm a big fan of him. I wanted him to come to the Jets.
I liked Byron Jones. Did I think he was worth that money? Absolutely not. But
no, not at all.
But you know what? It's just the way that the market is. That's what it comes down to when you're talking about guys like that. But they had a whole trunk full of draft picks in this draft. You add Tua Tagovailoa. These are guys in positions that they needed. Obviously losing Minkah Fitzpatrick last year. They
had no choice.
They had to. And I mean, he's like, totally revitalized in Pittsburgh. But, just looking at this team, as a whole, they're a team that there's a question mark next to it. You don't know what they're going to do. They're, as you were talking about with their coach is a very good coach. And he's someone that you want to like run through a wall for, and that's the guys that they have in that locker room. You have that kind of sense that they can really flip this division upside down if they really wanted to. If they have a decent season, this whole division is flipped upside down. Because who knows? We don't know what we're going to get from the New England Patriots, which we're going to talk about next.
New England Patriots.
We have no idea what we're going to get from them because we haven't seen them without Tom Brady in however long he's been playing, 16 years or whatever it is. So, this is one of the most interesting divisions when we're talking about, just not knowing. We have no idea because of, one player leaving. One player leaving has just turned this division into up for grabs, really.
I mean, that's honestly, and I'm a Jet fan, so I'm going to have to disagree with you on that. I like Tom Brady a lot. Obviously, Tom Brady is what he is. I mean, he's a great player. For people to believe that he's going to go to Tampa Bay right now and make a humongous difference there, I'm a strong believer that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were a good team last year, decent at best, but there's no doubt that you couldn't move the ball as much as they did, and they still had a very, very hard time winning games. It takes a full team to win in this league, and I don't think that one player is really going to do that. I do think that Cam Newton is more than capable of handling an offense, so especially a Bill Belichick run offense. I'm not really I'd probably be more worried about New England this year than Buffalo.
Okay, that's
me.
interesting.
That's my personal opinion. There's no particular order, but coming from a Jet fan perspective, I'm more worried about the game against the New England Patriots than I am against the Buffalo Bills.
I mean, they still have Bill Belichick, so that's
they're a very difficult team to beat with him at helm.
Exactly, and you know what? Again, there's the unknown because really all we know Bill Belichick is with Tom Brady and that form of play. You're looking at a pocket passer, you're looking at 3-yard passes, crisscrosses. That's the stuff that you're normally watching when it comes to the Patriots. But now you're talking about adding a guy like Cam Newton with a big arm. Mm-hmm. He's got the wheels. He's a big body. He can run, like a running back. So this is where you kind of see Bill Belichick's wheels turning in his head, because now we're going to see a different side of Bill Belichick, and that's what I'm interested to see when it comes to the Patriots, just how they're going to to play this out. How are they going to be? And adding Cam Newton, I had a feeling after he was released, I had a feeling that the Patriots were going to look into him because, that was the one team that really needed a quarterback. And who knows, Cam Newton might not even start. We have no idea, because
he's definitely starting.
I have that feeling
I actually have insider information. There's no doubt that they're leaning him, and it would be an utter shock to the entire organization if he wasn't starting week 1.
Yeah.
Based on the way practices have gone over there. Again, I'm no pro, but this is just insider information that I've gotten, is that there's no doubt that Tom Brady will be Cam Newton will be starting for New England week 1.
Yeah.
I would say it's 90 and 10%, but that's leaning towards 99% right now.
Yeah. So when we're talking about New England obviously they're kind of cap strapped They're before making all these moves that they did, they were, it was like they had to make some trades, they had to make some, cuts, but that was before COVID-19.
Yes.
When it comes to COVID-19 now, they have had plenty of players opt out. They have the most players opting out in the NFL when it comes to COVID-19. Marcus Cannon, Patrick Chung, Marquise Lee, Najee Turan, Dan Vitale, Matt Lacoste, Brandon Bolden, and Dante Hightower. And these guys are not, the low end of their salary, basically.
Yeah.
These guys are getting top salary, especially Patrick Chung, Marcus Cannon, Dante Hightower. So, do I think Bill Belichick had anything to do with this? Who knows? You really don't know. Because when you're really looking at it, obviously there's a quarterback coming out of college this year, and the Patriots have their eyes on him, and that's Trevor Lawrence. Another guy that Bill Belichick can fine tune to be a great quarterback. But I think adding Cam Newton kind of dampered that, because Cam Newton can win games. Cam Newton can win you games, and it's not 100%. Like the Patriots are terrible. You just lost your quarterback, and you re-signed Devin McCourty, you re-signed Matt Slater, Joe Thuney, Jason McCourty. So listen, the Patriots are no slouch. We're not saying that the Patriots are going to be the last place team now. But do I think they're going to be the number one team in this division? I don't think so.
It's just going to be closer.
Yeah.
I think after really analyzing each and every team like we just have, there's no doubt to put that basically this division is very unpredictable. Not really sure who's going to win. I think it's going to be very competitive, and I think even Miami, like you said, with the additions that they've made, they have a lot to prove, and I think they can get themselves right back into the talk themselves. And I think, the winner of this division is a mystery right now. And, obviously the only thing I'm going to go off is my bias, and I'm going to go with the New York Jets.
All right, so we might as well.
That's my personal opinion.
We might as well pick our division winners, and what we feel like this, this division's going to end up. And I guess I'll start. I feel as though, you're not going to be happy, but I feel as though it's going to be Buffalo, New England, Jets, and Miami. I feel like when it comes to the Jets, I feel like.
Well, they didn't move the ball because their offensive line is terrible. It's different. I mean, I'm going off just the fandom right there as being the reason as to why I think they're going to win the division. But you got to play the games, and it's really. I'm very high on Sam Darnold. I expect him to make adjustments. I did trade for him in fantasy football in a 2-quarterback league. I'm really. I expect him to make strides and get himself to be an elite level quarterback, because that's exactly where we drafted him. We drafted him 3rd overall for a reason, and that's because we expect him to be an elite quarterback, and he's got to make those strides. And in order to make those strides, that's the only way the New York Jets are going to find a way to win this division this year.
Absolutely. So before you give the rest of your division, let's just look at the strength of schedule. Toughest to easiest. The toughest schedule is the New England Patriots. The second toughest schedule is the New York Jets. And the third toughest schedule is the Miami Dolphins. So when we're talking about the Buffalo Bills are 5th, tied for 5th. So the AFC East has a very tough schedule this year. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. And, just looking at the New England Patriots having the toughest schedule, you know what? That may change my... The thing is, to me, the Jets and the Patriots are at a level, at the same level. It can go either way. I think that they're going to be a game or two off of each other. Mm-hmm. So it can go either way when it comes to second place. I just feel like the Buffalo Bills are the sure cut number one team in this division just because of what we saw last year, making the playoffs, getting through that first round. I think the Buffalo Bills are going to be a tough team, especially this year. But you know what? A lot of this changes now because, no fans in the stands. Other than, being able to play in your own stadium as being home field advantage, there's really not that home feel without the fans. So, Buffalo is a very tough place to play, and that's different now because the fans aren't there. So,
yeah.
But give the rest of you got the Jets number one, and then what do you got the rest of the way?
I'm going to go with the Patriots. I'm going to go Jets, Patriots, Bills, and then Miami. I got to see more out of Josh Allen. That's all it really comes down to. I think Stephon Diggs is a well-capable wide receiver. And I know they've gotten themselves to be better. But at the same time, they have a lot to prove to me. And obviously, they have a great defense over there. There's no denying it. It's just the Patriots have just been good for so long. Sometimes that could be a mental thing, even if it's for the coaches. It has nothing to do with the players on the field. I'm going to go with the Jets because of bias. There's no doubt about it. But at the same time, I think Bill Belichick is well aware of how to win football games in the NFL. And I think Buffalo, again, especially after a great season last year and, being able to advance beyond the first round, they're not considered a threat.
Yeah.
In my eyes.
Yeah.
I think Josh Allen has got to make some strides just as much as Sam Darnold. Really, those two teams come down to the strides their quarterbacks make.
Absolutely.
If Sam Darnold doesn't stride, then the Jets don't stride. And if Josh Allen doesn't shine, then neither will the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, so we're going to move on. That was I'm glad that we started with the AFC East because that's such a toss-up of a division. And I guess we can move on to another toss-up of a division.
NFC East.
And that's the NFC East. We're going with the East here.
Dallas Cowboys.
So first we'll go off with the Dallas Cowboys. So the Dallas Cowboys had a very, very, very interesting offseason. They finally move on from Mr. 8-8, Jason Garrett. As the Cowboys finished last season 8-8, they were 5-1 in the division, which is, going 8-8 and being able to go 5-1 in the division, there's a problem there. There really is a problem there. Their total cap space this year is $7.7 million, but they add Mike McCarthy. Then Mike McCarthy adds Mike Nolan, John Fossil, Jim Tomsula, Joe Philbin, Al Harris. These are guys, as this was going down, Mike McCarthy, adding these coaches and this and that, it just started to look like that. They were really adding a powerhouse of a coaching staff, and I loved every minute of it. The Cowboys this year, they signed Amari Cooper to a 5-year deal, Blake Jarwin to a 3-year deal. Dak Prescott was franchised. They brought back Sean Lee for a year. You add guys like Antoine Woods, you re-sign him, but then you lose. They lost a lot this year. They lost, Tavon Austin, Connor McGovern, Malcolm Smith, Byron Jones, Malik Collins, Michael Bennett, Randall Cobb, Jason Witten, Robert Quinn, Travis Frederick, Jeff Heath, Kayvon Frazier. These are all, guys that played big-time roles for the Cowboys last year. And then you go into the draft, you add CeeDee Lamb first, you get Trayvon Diggs, Neville Gallimore, then you add a guy like Bradley Anae, closer to the end in the 5th round. You add guys like Andy Dalton, Everson Griffin, Alden Smith, Don Terry Poe, HaHa Clinton Dix, Greg Zuerlein. They had a very, very good offseason, and I loved every minute of it. And it's making the Dallas Cowboys a tougher team. Especially the way that Mike McCarthy wants to play. And you're going to see, the thing is, with Jason Garrett under helm, when it came to the Dallas Cowboys, you knew what you were going to get. They were a very, very predictable team. And that's the thing this year, is that nobody knows what Mike McCarthy's going to do with this team. So the Cowboys are an interesting team, basically. So I'm excited to see what the Dallas Cowboys can bring this year. And obviously, we just got done with you talking about your bias, and I bring some of my bias in.
I don't blame you for bringing your bias in, being a Cowboy fan and all. I also don't think that, I expect them to win the division. There's no doubt about it. I expect them to win division last year, the year before that. But they continue to disappoint.
Yeah. Trust me, I know.
I'll be honest. There's really no other way to put it. I mean, they're too talented.
Yeah.
They really are too talented of a team. I mean, I don't think Philadelphia is that talented.
I don't think
they
so
were
either.
last year. They had great front, but they've lost guys. They're older. Wentz, let me know when you make it 16 games. When it comes down to it, that division, for the most part, you got Philly and Dallas. You feel like it's going to be a competition between the two of them. But the Giants, who knows? They're like, I feel like the Giants and the Jets are in the same boat of their division.
Yeah.
You got two teams that are really going to be really good, and you're trying to just catch up to them. I personally think New England and Buffalo are both going to be really well-rounded teams, just as much as I think Philly and Dallas are. The Giants got to find a way to win games against these teams, and you got like the Washington, who's like the Miami of the AFC East. So both of these divisions look very similar. So it really goes about to what we were talking about with the AFC East. When I see the Buffalo Bills, I think of, the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah.
When I think of the New England Patriots, I'm thinking of the Dallas Cowboys, Jets and Giants, and then Washington, Miami. It's very, very similar in that standpoint. It's the Dallas division to lose. I feel like they have the most talent. I think adding CeeDee Lamb did nothing but just increase it.
Yeah.
There's no excuse for Dak Prescott. I think the contract talks with him need to stop. I really don't think it's realistic that you're going to get this kind of money, especially since I don't think the NFL is going to be making money this year at all.
Well, when it came
it's just hard to pay all these guys. What happened?
When it came to Dak Prescott, obviously they said that they were close to a deal with like minutes remaining on the deadline. Dak Prescott went on
I'll tell you
about
right now,
2 weeks ago.
Once everything's signed, Dallas is going to find themselves in a really, really hurtful situation. You have too much talent on that team to really pay someone like that kind of money. Because the Dallas Cowboys shouldn't even be losing one game with the talent they have on the field. Their offensive line is no doubt the best offensive line in football. There's no doubt.
Losing Travis Frederick hurts, but
it does hurt a lot. It really does. Missing out your center. It'll be interesting to see how that pans out.
Yeah.
But obviously, there was no doubt they had the best offensive line the last couple of years. So this is where Dak needs to prove himself. Listen, you don't have the best offensive line this year. You've had better.
Yeah.
You should have won the Super Bowl already.
Yeah.
Let's see what you could do here, and you got to earn your money.
Well,
I feel like him asking for that kind of money after a season like last year was just unfair for the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah. And
in that whole situation, I don't even really want to get too much into it, but their goal as high as Dak Prescott is going to bring them. I should probably say that they're more similar to the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
Let's see what Dak will bring, and you'll see Dallas the rest of the way be able to ride the wave. I mean, you have pass rushers on the other side of the field. Their defense is something else.
Yeah, their defense.
I play Madden, and they're a team I'm looking at to use as the chemistry build up because they have so many great defenders.
Yeah. Yeah, I like I was saying,
Their
Dak
front
Prescott.
line is scary.
Yeah, it is. I'm pretty pumped about it. I'm pissed. I'm pissed about the Gerald McCoy, but it looks like they're gonna try to bring him back next year. So we'll see. But in terms of Dak Prescott fired his agent about a week after the whole deadline. So in my mind, I had a feeling that the agent was the reason why this whole thing was dragging out. And at the end, it couldn't get done because the agent screwed him over. So I think Dak Prescott probably should have a long-term deal by now. But now, obviously, we have to wait until the end of the season. So we're not going to hear anything about a contract, for the whole season until the offseason. So we'll see what happens. But, we'll move on.
Philadelphia Eagles.
To the next team, as we were talking about, the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles are another team that you don't know because Carson Wentz can't stay on the field. And this is a team that's going to go as far as, he's going to bring them. They trade for Darius Slay, which is a big-time, cornerback on the other side of the ball. You re-sign Corey Clement, Vinny Curry, Rodney McLeod, Jalen Mills, Jason Peters. Jason Peters was big because, obviously, that tackle, that's a big spot that you need. You lose Malcolm Jenkins, you lose Nigel Bradham, who's now a free agent because New Orleans released him. Darren Sproles retired. And then you draft a guy like Jalen Reagor. And then the one guy that turned Phillies fans' stomachs upside down and even the draft upside down was Jalen Hurts in the second round. So it's very interesting with this team. They bring in Marquise Goodwin, and then he opts out. So, they're looking at $24 million in salary cap this year. This is another team. As you were saying, this is a team that, is a very good team, but can also be that, a couple of things going wrong, and they could be a very bad team. So
course.
It's tough. I feel like they don't have that much depth when it comes to this team, and I still believe, and I've believed this for a very long time, that the Dallas Cowboys are a better team than the Eagles. No matter, the last year, the year before that, I don't see the talent, comparison between the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles. And
there is none, and there hasn't been the last 3 years.
That's
either,
what I'm saying. So
you got to figure out a way to get over the hump, and I think it falls on Dak Prescott.
It does.
Someone like Nick Foles can come in to Philly and excel.
Yeah.
And you're talking Dak, who's looking for $30 million a year, can't get this team to the top of the division. So that's the most alarming part. And then I also think that the NFL salary cap will go down, like you talked about earlier with the New York Jets having $81 million. That's going to go down because they're going to cut money off these salary caps because how else are you paying these players? As far as I know, there are only a select few stadiums that are going to allow fans, and I can only imagine what the experience will be like, and I don't think I'll have any interest in going to do that.
Yeah, I mean,
as the average fan, I don't think it'll be interesting to do something like that. You're going to go to a game with your friend, but you got to be six feet away. You want to hug somebody when your team does good.
Yeah.
It's just, and guess what? I'm going to watch the game from my living room, and I can hug someone without the judgment of the rest of the world.
Yeah.
So that's, the NFL has got a huge hump to go over right now. And I think for these teams, when it comes to preparing for next year, because of the unpredictability, it's hard to pay people right now. It's a big problem with the Jets have with Jamal Adams, Dallas has with Dak Prescott, and we'll just see how it further pans out.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll move on.
New York Giants.
To the Giants. The Giants are as you were saying, a very unpredictable team. We don't know. This is just another division that really can go anywhere. I mean, I still think that the Cowboys are a higher team. I think it's the Dallas Cowboys, and then there's spaces, and then it's the rest of the NFC East. That's how I feel, and I'm not even using my bias on that. I just honestly feel talent-wise, the Dallas Cowboys are up here, and the rest of the NFC East is down here. So you look at a team like the Giants. They finished 4-12 last year, 2-4 in the division. They add a new coaching staff with Joe Judge as the head coach, a rookie head coach, followed under Bill Belichick. You make some re-signings. I mean, this team, you lose Eli Manning. They added guys like James Bradbury. They added Blake Martinez, two very good players on the defensive side of the ball. They add Colt McCoy as a backup, Dion Lewis as a backup. They did well in the draft. They draft Andrew Thomas, a tackle, something that they needed more than anything in the world. They add Xavier McKinney, which is the safety that I wanted. So they did well in the draft. They did well in the offseason. They didn't lose much. They didn't really gain as much, but they gained, players that they needed. You re-sign Marcus Golden. You re-sign Leonard Williams, obviously through a franchise tag. So this is another team. I don't see them getting past the third spot in this division.
Well, again, you talked about all these additions they made, and Andrew Thomas obviously could be a difference maker, but he's one guy.
Yeah.
And they lost Nate Soldier. The offensive line is going to be very similar. You're going to see similar troubles for the New York Giants as you did last year. Any Giant fan that's willing to say anything different is just being
they don't know. They're just trying to be
not aware.
Yeah.
They're not aware of what's going on. I have the same concerns for the Jets, so it's not like I'm being biased here. The Jets have a lot to prove with their offensive line. It has to be better, and just like the Giants has to be better. I just don't see I don't see it happening for either team so far right now. But obviously that's why we play the games, and we'll see how the division pans out. But the Giants are going to go as far as their offensive line goes, and hopefully Daniel Jones doesn't get hit as much, and therefore less fumbles, and you got a better chance of winning ball games.
I mean, looking at this division, and when you're talking about pass rush, I think Daniel Jones is going to be running for his life.
Even Washington now with the new addition of their draft pick. So, you got to protect your quarterback, and it's really we'll see how good and how effective the Giants can do that. And based on how effective they're able to protect their quarterback, it's going to be the biggest difference on whether or not they end up being over or under 500 this year.
Absolutely. So now we'll move on to
Washington Redskins.
To the Washington Redskins. I'm not calling them a Washington football team because that sounds stupid. So they
Washington.
Could have, but
I don't know. We haven't actually talked about that.
We really haven't.
Subject a lot. My perspective personally is just basically it's not worth my stress.
Yeah,
I guess is the best way to put it.
And that's the reason why we haven't.
Other people value things differently. That's the beauty of planet Earth and different people around, because people will value things differently. Some people find that to be an amazing concern of theirs. For me, it really just goes right over my head. It's not relevant to me. But obviously, I'm not offended by it. There are some people out there that are offended by it, and it's absolutely understandable, the circumstances that have been made. Yeah. Me personally, don't care. I mean, I care about, I just like watching football. I mean, this kind of other stuff, I don't care what their names are. I don't care the names of the teams. I barely care about the names of the players. I don't care. You're making a lot of money. I don't need, you're popular. I don't, you're like, you're famous kind of thing. It's, just play football. That's really what I want to watch the product. And that's the kind of football fan I am. I'm a big fan of the product. I think the game is just such a great game. The concept of the game, every aspect of it. And I love football in that standpoint. But when it comes to the Washington Redskins and everything they did with their name, it's understandable. I personally, on this show, don't care what they do with the name. I don't care what they call them after. I don't care if that's going to offend someone else after. It's not my because I don't get offended. I really just don't.
And that's the thing. And that's one of the reasons why we didn't talk about this, is because we have the same outlook on this whole thing, and it's at that point where it's like, I don't really care. I don't care about a team name. It's not going to offend me. Obviously, I'm not in that part to be offended, but I'm not easily offended. You can call me short, you could call whatever. It doesn't matter. I don't get offended like that. So when it comes to a thing that has nothing to do with me, it just, I don't care. I'm not going to call a team a Washington football team. So
I'm not going to care what to call them. Let's talk about what they're expected of the season, because that's really our job.
Exactly.
Here. Our job isn't to care about, how offended or when people are offended or what we should call Washington, what we shouldn't call Washington.
Exactly.
Don't care.
So
okay, just give me football. It's really that's what a lot of people in this world need right now.
Exactly.
It's football, entertainment, not reasons to get stressed out, because I feel like there are plenty of other reasons out there to get stressed out in this world. Take football as a way of enjoyment, and you got to enjoy the game. Don't find the little pieces in it that are going to frustrate you, because there are plenty of things that are going to frustrate you with football. Take it from me, I'm a New York Jet fan. So things are going to frustrate you that actually matter on the field. I mean, really, being frustrated by something off the field, good. Get rid of the name. That's fine. Just don't find a new name. Don't give me any more drama with this, because this is nonsense.
Yeah.
This is not part of the game of football. It has nothing to do with the actual sport. It has to do with a bunch of rich people and what they chose as names and products and jersey sales. And this is people making money.
Yeah.
This is not relevant to the game of football and, what I like to see, which is a product on television every Sunday.
So the Washington...
As far as Washington, though, Chase Young, great pass rusher. Still going to have trouble moving the ball. I made fun of a friend of mine earlier. He kept Dwayne Haskins as a keeper. I had to have him look him up for me because I couldn't find him on the list. It's going to be a very, very difficult season. I think Terry McLaurin is more than capable of a number one wide receiver. And I personally believe that, they're just going to have troubles. I think they find ways to win games. I don't think they're going to be as bad as Miami was. I think again, like I said, similar to Washington being like Miami, I think Washington makes strides just as much as Miami and has a lot to prove in this division. And, obviously we'll see what kind of player Chase Young is. And hopefully he's an effective pass rusher, because that'll be a big difference in Washington finding ways to win games this year.
So now Washington ended last year 3-13. They were 0-6 in the division. The biggest issue with Washington this year is how many departures they had that were actual starters. You have guys like Vernon Davis retiring, Jordan Reed, Donald Penn, Trent Williams, Eric Flowers, Quentin Dunbar, Josh Norman, Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie, Case Keenum, Colt McCoy, Chris Thompson. These are guys that, played a role for Washington last year. And then you add a guy like Kyle Allen as, a third quarterback, because we just got word, was it last week or the week before, that Alex Smith is activated. So that's, he's, what? Listen, Dwayne Haskins had his troubles last year. Dwayne Haskins still having some of his troubles in training camp. I would not listen. I don't know what you're gonna get from Alex Smith, because I watched the video of him getting, the champagne bath by his kids and everything like that. He didn't look like he was walking right, for a guy that basically had his knee shredded. You don't know what you're gonna get from him. So who knows if he'll even be able to compete with Dwayne Haskins. I think he's, Alex Smith is always gonna be a very good quarterback. Not great, but a very good quarterback that can put your team in a good position. What you're going to get from Dwayne Haskins this year, another year under his belt, who knows? We'll see. I just don't see the Redskins really taking that extra hump, more than what they've done last year. They add Ronald Darby, Thomas Davis, Kendall Fuller. We can go into this whole one. They're not going to, they're very similar. They're going to have to find ways to win games. You can make all the additions you want, but again, like we talked about, it's the Dallas division. Every other team is another step in front. My order I'm going to go Dallas, Philly, Giants, Washington. I'm pretty sure everybody in America is going to do that same order. Yeah. But obviously it's subject to change, and it'll be an interesting season to say the least. But Washington, made some great additions, and Alex Smith. This isn't even relevant right now. Yeah.
We'll see how it is when he's on the field. Again, I'm not going to look into how he's walking and in little home videos. Yeah. I'm very happy for him. I think when you bring up Alex Smith, I think the one thing to bring up is that you should be happy for him. I think he's just the way he's going about it. He came back from a very serious injury. Obviously, I saw it. It was serious as hell. I'm glad he made a full recovery. Do I think he's going to make an impact this season with the football season with the Washington Redskins? I do not, and it's not at fault of him. It's again. I think that I'm a big believer of football being a full team. Yeah. You need team of talent, and right now there's no doubt the Dallas Cowboys own that talent, the most talent in that division. Philly's a very close second. The Giants are even a close third as well. They got a lot of talent. They, like you said, the additions you made, the Washington Redskins additions have been really well. But again, I think at the same time, there's no doubt Dallas owns the majority of this talent that this division has to offer, and I'm pretty sure they're going to win the division. And the other three teams, I could see two of these teams also making it in the wild card. So,
yeah. So now, my order is obviously the same as yours: Dallas, Philly.
I think everybody
Giants,
in America has the same order.
Running up the score. Fantasy football advice. Defense.
Now we're going to move on to the fantasy portion of this episode. We're doing defenses. I'm going to give you I'll give you the stats, and I want you to give me what you're thinking. From sportingnews.com, I got a defensive ranking for fantasy. I'm just going to give you the top 10. San Francisco, Pittsburgh, New England, Chicago, Baltimore, Buffalo, Minnesota, Kansas City, Chargers, and the Saints. The sleepers that they had was the Chargers, Seattle, Tennessee, Jacksonville, and Cleveland. Now, last year, there's a thing called Havoc. There's a stat called Havoc. It's tackles for a loss, plus forced fumbles, plus interceptions, plus pass defense, and plus pressures. So now, the top 10 in that was Pittsburgh, San Francisco, New Orleans, Tampa Bay, Buffalo, Philly, New England, Rams, Baltimore, and Minnesota. The only defense to rank among the top 10 in Havoc and not in fantasy points was Philadelphia, and they ranked 14th. So when we're talking about strength of schedule, now I remember last year you brought up, which I never even thought of, but you brought up playoff weeks when you're looking into the draft. And that's
actually it's funny because that's exactly what I was just looking at right now.
Yeah. So I have them written down.
That's perfect because then you get an idea. You want to talk about defenses, and we can go into this whole thing about who's ranked the highest and who's going to be the best. Nobody had the New England Patriots being as well as they are. It's almost like a luck factor on the basis you want your defense to get a touchdown. A defense gets you a touchdown or a kick return for a touchdown. Special teams is included. That'll take over anything they do on the defensive side of the ball, like give up points, which is relevant to the fantasy output.
Yeah.
For a defense. I think the best and most important thing to do is you got a lot of teams out there that will draft a defense that has a great matchup week one. Me personally, I think San Fran is a great matchup for the whole season. That's probably the defense I'm going to go with in most leagues. So you got teams like the Bills. They will have to take on the Patriots in Foxborough. It's a great defense, but it's a crappy situation to be in.
So do you want to hear their playoff
San Francisco in the semifinal week, which is week 15, the most important week in fantasy football, folks. More important than week 16. Everyone talks about championship week. You got to get to the championship game. It's everything.
Yeah.
And the way to get to the championship is winning in week 15. And then even the San Francisco 49ers find themselves in Dallas, which is also a very tough matchup. They're very good 14 and 16. 15, you're going to have to find a hole. So you're really not really based on one defense. I don't really think defense is too relevant. You just really want to get yourselves good matchups. You don't want to have a team going up against, the powerhouses like the Packers and, who are the Kansas City Chiefs and the Baltimore. The teams that you cannot stop are the teams you don't want your defense going up against. That's probably the most basic relevance I can give you when it comes to defense in fantasy football. Matchups are everything.
So now when we're talking about, I've looked at different rankings, different places that had rankings. A lot of the rankings I saw were Pittsburgh #1 defense. Now when you look at the playoff weeks, and by playoff weeks, your usually average is week 13 to week 17. That's like the average. So now when we're talking about Pittsburgh has home against Washington, away at Buffalo, away at Cincinnati, home against Indy, and away at Cleveland. So that's...
And what weeks are those?
Week 13, 14, 15, 16, 17.
And who's that for?
That's for Pittsburgh.
Those are good matchups.
That's good matchups for.
But I mean, again, we are so early in the season.
Oh
Jerry.
yeah,
There's
absolutely.
so much that can go into play. I mean, for all I know, the Dallas Cowboys could lose Elliott and Dak Prescott. I'm not trying to throw that out there. I know you just kind of had your eyes open wide open.
Let's not talk about that.
But it's 100% a possibility. Anybody can get hurt.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know, in the NFL, and you don't want, you're going to want those matchups later on in the year. So as the season progresses, you kind of want to get,
keep an eye on.
You might not own the defense right now, but it could be a defense like the Chargers, who are going to take on the Panthers. Now, the Panthers' starting quarterback is Teddy Bridgewater. Let's say that all of a sudden we're at this point of the season, he's not their quarterback anymore. He got hurt. Teddy Bridgewater's been hurt before, so it's understandable. Now you got a quarterback in there. You're not even sure who's going to be playing. How effective are they going to be? I'm going to want that defense in there. Yeah. That's how that works.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's going to happen all the time. You're going to get quarterbacks get hurt. A quarterback gets hurt every year in the NFL.
Absolutely.
It's understandable. They try to protect them, but we're all human. We all get hurt. Our bodies can only take so much. The guys in this league are now more powerful, faster than ever before. Guys are going to get hurt in this situation. It's an unfortunate part of the game, but it still is a part of the game. So, based on that, so much can happen. I don't really think there's too much to go into when it comes to defense. I do like the Pittsburgh matchups, like you're saying, but who knows? These teams we're talking about that have mediocre offenses. People talk about the Jets could have a mediocre offense. Yeah. If Sam Darnold turns it on this year, there's a different standpoint.
I mean, well, like just a perfect example with the Jets. Last year they have, what was it, the first 6 weeks or whatever, Darnold ends up with mono. Then, as a Cowboys fan,
that they played turned into great matchups.
As a Cowboys fan, you're going into playing the Jets, and you're like, all right, this is easy. Darnold comes back for that game, and all of a sudden, they torch the Cowboys defense. So that's a game that the Dallas Cowboys, and as a Cowboys fan, you're going into. I went to the game. You're going into that game thinking, all right, this is a win, and the Cowboys literally, fall flat on their face, and the Jets look like they're about to turn it on for the rest of the season, and then you see what happens. So, listen, when it comes to fantasy, if you're an average fantasy player, if you're a guy that just kind of looks at, once a week or whatever, you're not going to do well. You're not going to do well.
Too much into this defensive standpoint. You just want guys to get hurt. I mean, that sounds horrible, but you want guys to be out of the game. I don't want them to get hurt. Let them be sick, whatever. Don't even catch COVID, but make them think it's COVID. It's a whole thing.
Yeah.
But that was a horrible statement to say. It's terrible. I do not believe that people should be getting hurt, but it can be fortunate for you in fantasy football on defensive matchups. I don't think that it's that imperative to get a defense that's going to be dominant, because there's no such thing as a dominant defense when you got a Patrick Mahomes and a Lamar Jackson, a Tom Brady, a Drew Brees, and Aaron Rodgers. These offenses are going to score no matter what. They are that talented. They have that much chemistry. And Devontae Adams has been with Aaron Rodgers forever. Tom Brady has been with Gronk forever.
Yeah.
Patty Mahomes and his entire arsenal.
Travis
Same thing.
Kelce. Yep.
Lamar Jackson with Mark Andrews and Marquise Brown. And these guys have chemistry.
Yeah.
It don't matter what defense. You could put the Bills defense out there, who I really do like. It's nothing against the Bills defense, but they're gonna give up points to these dominant offenses.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's basically actually, before we get out of here, let's just kind of talk about the state of fantasy football when it comes to what's going to happen this year, because this year is different than any other year, and what you're going to be looking for when you're going into fantasy football and going into your drafts and this and that, like, it's a different year, and you got to start looking at bench positions. Like, it's not going to be whereas like you're done and you're like, all right, let's just add this guy. Let's just add this guy. You actually have to start thinking about losing because of COVID. This is a new year. This is something that we've never dealt with before, especially in fantasy football. So, as I said, like you have to be ready to have a depth on your roster. You know, it's not just some throwaway guy that you throw on your roster, because that guy could end up being your starter because, you know, as I said, someone could go down with COVID, and we have no idea. We have no idea how this is going to work out. So it's going to be interesting this year.
Yeah, I honestly think that when it comes down to, you know, that concept, you know, we've always talked about how you need the backups for your running backs and stuff like that because they're imperative in case your guys go down and your team doesn't skip a beat. This year, it goes more imperative than ever before.
Yeah.
And I even think it goes to the position, every position at this point. Even your quarterback, you know, your quarterback could be out for 2 weeks. You just don't know, you know, especially with COVID happening. I feel like the standard thing a lot of teams have, you know, a lot of commissioners have done in leagues I've been in, are adding another IR slot or adding another, you know, bench slot just to have more depth because of the circumstances. Fantasy will probably be different in a lot of standpoints this year. I think the game of football in general will be a lot different, you know, with no fans and, you know, how effective is home field advantage at this point? It probably won't be that effective.
No.
So we'll see what happens as the season progresses. But, you know, fantasy owners need to be well aware of the circumstances that are surrounding this year, and just try to get a lot of depth out there to handle all the injuries.
Yeah, absolutely. So that will do it. The next episode that we're going to do, we'll be talking about the AFC West and the NFC West and the draft and the fantasy football position that we'll be getting into is tight ends. So you're not going to want to miss that one. But that will do it. I'm Jerry.
I'm Kevin.
Be breezy.
Be breezy. And it is all over!
You've been listening to Running Up the Score. We run up the score on sports radio. For more Running Up the Score, go follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at RUTS Sports.